Welcome to In the Funnel. My name is Mark Cox. In the Funnel is a group of sales coaches and consultants that help B2B sales teams dramatically improve revenue. Clients come to us when revenue growth has stagnated, or their sales team is not meeting expectations, or they need to recalibrate their sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. Our clients have enjoyed tremendous success working within the funnel, and please hear it straight from them by listening to the testimonial section of this website. What they'll tell you is there's two things that make us unique and different in our space. Number one, we have a process and a methodology. First, for understanding your current state, and then second, for building your sales and go-to-market plan for the upcoming year. The second thing that makes us unique and different is that everybody within the funnel has run a material sales organization in their recent past. We're all practitioners. We don't have any theorists or teachers, and what that means is we can get in front of your sales team and run the next sales meeting, or join them on their next sales call to close your next large prospect. All of us have a passion for professional, disciplined, process-driven sales, and we'd be delighted to talk to you if you're looking to grow revenue for your company. Please feel free to reach out to us through this website at info@inthefunnel.com or by telephone. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.
So when we can get people, even like an intro to sales course, when we can get young people into that one course, and the professor can get them to understand that sales is more about being a consultant to your customer, to your client. It's about creating a plan and advising them on the best course, what product, what service is going to serve them in the most advantageous way. And so if you can get rid of that stigma, which is so ingrained in people's minds, you can get into seeing what sales truly is, you find that a lot of women and just young people in general are really intrigued by that prospect. And as you've said, the job market in sales is still huge. It's kind of a win-win, for the university that has the sales program and the student who gets in and recognizes it and runs with it. We like to say many times when you're talking to a student who's a graduate of a sales program, they actually self-selected into sales. They didn't fall back on it. Exactly. It wasn't oh my gosh, I can't get a job in my industry, I'm going to go into sales. Their industry is sales.
Folks, the show today is really near and dear to our hearts at the Selling Well podcast because we exist to help improve the performance and professionalism of B2B sales. And you constantly heard us talk about this show where we question why there's not more formal education on B2B sales at the college and university level. And that's why today I'm so excited to talk to Marty Holmes, because Marty is the executive director at the Sales Education Foundation. And what they really do is they promote formal education of B2B sales. So since they began in 2007, it was actually the folks who founded the Challey Group. Howard and Sally Stevens founded the Sales Education Foundation as a not-for-profit to promote the benefit of university sales education, both in academia and the corporate world. So through the Sales Education Foundation, we can find out about the 235 universities that actually teach courses on professional sales today. 39 of them provide you a major in B2B selling. 100 plus, you can get a minor in B2B selling. They list out and share what's going on at the university level. So sales competitions, just fantastic. Recruiting, lots of ongoing education, just an amazing conversation about where we're all going in terms of elevating the profession of sales to the profession it really is. You've heard me sit on my soapbox many a time about this topic. Really great conversation with Marty today. She shares a lot of what's taking place with the Sales Education Foundation moving forward, including their next annual, their issue or newsletter, if you will, that really is a theme of the renaissance of both sales leadership and professional B2B sales. What a great competition. What a great conversation with Marty today. Really enjoyed meeting her. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this conversation too. And if you do, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast. Here's Marty Holmes from the Sales Education Foundation. So Marty, welcome to the show and thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Mark, for inviting me.
So I am perplexed, frankly, Marty, that it took kind of 70 podcasts in, maybe 80 podcasts, for me to actually find you and the Sales Education Foundation. So one of the things, and we talked about this offline, but one of the reasons our company exists in the funnel and the reason we do the Selling Well podcast is our whole mission is to improve the performance and professionalism of B2B sales teams. And in doing so, really improve the lives of professional salespeople. And we talk a lot about, the fact there should be more formal education on professional B2B sales. But we'd never heard of the Sales Education Foundation. So first of all, shame on us. And frankly, shame on some of your board members, because I've actually had Lee Saltz and Barry Trailer and Jason Jordan. They've all been on the show. So's Lori Richardson.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only when we actually, I think you and I connected in because Grant Ulbrich was on the show, another great guy. And all of these folks who were on the show, they were fantastic too, but we never got around to talking about this. So first of all, let's start here. Let's hear the short introduction of you and a little bit of the background on the Sales Education Foundation from your words.
Well, thank you, Mark. A little bit about me. Well, I've had a number of different careers, as most people have, but one thing was synonymous throughout all of the different opportunities I had, and that was sales. Mm-hmm. Everyone lives by selling something. That's a quote from Robert Louis Stevenson, who's one of my heroes, so to speak. I have a Scottish background, and so I love that because it is so true. I actually stumbled upon SEF totally by accident. I was at a dinner with Howard and Sally Stevens, who founded SEF, and with my husband, and the executive director of SEF at the time was also there. And she asked me, she said, well, Marty, what is it you're doing now? And I was actually between careers because we had just moved several states away from where I grew up in North Carolina. And she said, come and see me. And so I went into her office one day and she started telling me about SEF. And I saw there was such synergy there between what I had done most of my life and what SEF was trying to do, which was to elevate the sales profession and basically just get the word out that sales education does exist. And there are a number of universities who are offering different levels of degree in sales. And she and I talked for a long time. She hired me on part-time. That was 13 years ago this week.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just, I love the nonprofit mindset and the idea of helping people. So it just fit perfectly.
Well, boy, what a coincidence, by the way, 13 years this week. That's great. And so, there are some organizations globally and, in different countries and different continents that are actually elevating, the professionalism of the sales discipline, let's call it. But I do want to share, I want to get into where SEF is today. And I'll share, I don't know if you've seen this article, Marty, but it was back in 2012, Harvard Business Review. They dedicated, you're smiling, you've probably seen this one, they dedicated an entire quarterly business review to sales. And this was right around the time that I founded my company In the Funnel. And the article I love is called Teaching Sales. And it did reference, I guess, the connection in with Howard and Sally Stevens, because they referenced the Challey Group research that was also showcased in the Challenger sale with Matt Dixon and Brent Adamson.
Mm-hmm.
So it talked about, hey, 39% of buyers actually choose the company that sold better versus price, quality, service features.
Mm-hmm.
But a quote from the article: so business schools must spend a lot of time teaching sales, right? Wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at the curricula of the world's top ranked business schools. You might come away with the impression that sales is unimportant. Most MBA programs offer no sales related courses at all. And those that do only offer a single course in sales management. Even at the undergraduate level of business instruction, sales courses are sparse. Now, truth be told, this is, of course, 2012, 2013, long time ago, so 10
Right.
years ago. And in fact, I think the number of business schools that offer an MBA have almost doubled since then. I don't have that fact, but I was chatting with Roger Martin about this 3 or 4 podcasts ago. And at this time, there were only 479 schools in the US that would give you an MBA. So I think it's almost double now. And it
I'd
talked
agree.
about, yeah, it talked about 350,000 students, or 170,000 students who would get an MBA each year. And I think that number's doubled as well. I should listen to our own podcast. Roger gave me updated numbers. Tell me a little bit, but really the net of it was saying, hey, you know, sales is super important, but it's really not taught in academia today. So it's kind of the Wild West out there. But that's different now. And I was so pleased to come across your organization. But can you update us a little bit, Marty, on some of the stats today? Tell us about the state of sales education, informal academia today in the US.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for reviewing that article. There was also one written, I think, in 2016 by Frank Cespedes and Dan Weinfurter. I know Dan very well. As a matter of fact, Dan was part of the organization that purchased Challey from the Stevens.
Oh,
and he became a real proponent of SEF. So that article that I'm referencing is still very much circulated today. People stumble across it. Why more universities don't teach sales is basically the gist of it. But so I need to almost go back a little bit in order to give people a picture of how we have moved forward. So we were founded in 2007, and Howard and Sally and a group of our founding board members, they were putting together a plan of how we could help to elevate the sales profession through university education. The very first thing they decided to do was send out a survey. How many universities are offering anything in sales? That year, they found 27 universities that had something to do in sales. And there were several trailblazers. Baylor University would be one, Northern Illinois University would be another. And there are many more who've come on board. So if we fast forward to 2023, and I'm actually working on the data right now that will be out in our 2023 SEF annual, which publishes late March, early April. So this past year, we had over 300 people complete the survey, professors. And out of that, we found, I think it's 235 now that are offering some type of sales education. And there are 39, I believe 39 is the correct number, now offering a major in sales, and over 100 are offering a minor. And the minors are typically, woven into another study of another discipline. But as I said earlier, everyone goes into sales. So more and more universities are recognizing that they need to incorporate at least one sales course into their business curriculum. But it's not just taught at business schools anymore. You've got colleges of entrepreneurship. Right. And in the Midwest and the Southwest, you've also got sales being taught through agribusiness programs.
Wow. Okay.
Which is, that's kind of a new area. But what we have found over the years is that, we know everyone has some sort of sales involved in their career. The challenge is to get the deans at the universities to recognize sales as a discipline.
Hmm.
So the ultimate goal has always been, sales should be considered along with engineering, along with science. It really is a art as well as a science involved.
Yes.
And with so many people being in sales, even one course, just the exposure to the technicality and the process of sales will increase a student's hireability, reliability in sales, outcomes, all of those things that make for a successful employee.
Well, you say, I love the way you say it, Marty, everything is sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had Dan Pink on this show, who's written 8 or 9 Wall Street, journal bestsellers. But the one we started with that we loved is called Sell is Human.
Oh, yes. That
And
textbook's used there. That book is used a lot as a textbook in colleges.
It should. Oh, I've always said, it's funny on the show, I've always said it should be the MBA curriculum should be that book, because his books are so well written. And the bibliography should be the reading list of a professional sales course, because he references everything. But even back then, and again, I think it's around the same timing, 2012, 2013. I can't remember when the book was written, but he said 1 in 11 or 1 in 10 people in the US was in a professional sales job with sales in their title. But of course, there's a gazillion other people who sell that don't have sales in their title. Lawyers, accountants, anybody in professional services.
Right.
What I found so interesting was he did research on, for the other 9 in 10 who aren't in a professional sales job, what percentage of their day do they actually spend trying to influence somebody else to their point of view, which is sales. And it came out that 39% of the time they're trying to influence somebody else to their point of view. So that's where the book title comes from, To Sell is Human. So everything is sales. So how very interesting with this ubiquitous need that it is a business discipline. And I kind of pushed on this, Marty. I'm getting so excited about the topic because this is something that's just baffled me for 15, 20 years. Because 15 years ago, I did an MBA. I think around 15 years ago. It's now starting to get sort of gray. Really good business school in Canada. And just fantastic education, 3 courses in finance, 4 courses in marketing, 5 courses on strategy, just spectacular. I loved every minute of it. 0 on professional sales, nothing. And, when I'd go and talk to, the dean of the school and other people, because I was in sales at that point in time, literally, they kind of thought it was beneath them.
Yes.
It was a bit shocking.
Yes.
And they sort of felt there was this real stigma. And it's funny, when we had Dan Pink on the podcast, the last thing he says in the podcast was, I said, "What prompted you to write this book?" And I'll paraphrase it, but he said he saw this massive disconnect between the 40-year-old stereotype of professional selling and, which was kind of the used car salesman joke from The Simpsons. And what he saw with all of his friends and associates today, who were some of the smartest, most intellectually curious, problem-solving, capable people, he saw this huge disconnect and he was trying to reconcile it. And that's what prompted him to write the book. There
is a huge disconnect. Yeah.
Isn't it? It's just crazy interesting to me today. So today, but when we had, and sorry for the long-winded question here, but when we had Roger Martin on the show, I asked him the same thing. And he was, one of the top strategic thinkers in the world. He was by Thinkers 50 in 2017. All of his books are bestsellers amongst the academic community. He's a genius at everything. And I said, what's stopping it? Like, why isn't sales told? Because he was actually dean of a Canadian business school for about 10 years. And he came back and said, university professors are looking for tenure. They get tenure by being published in formal academic journals. he said, because there aren't a lot of formal academic journals in professional sales, it might be important, but they're not going to spend their time working, without getting tenure. So they're going to focus on topics where they can get published and then get tenure. He said that was the linchpin. And he did reference back to things like even business strategy only started in the 70s. So he said there's these topics, academia is behind on these really important topics. And consulting companies were only born in the 1970s because the founder of BCG went through Harvard in 1973. So we had this kind of conversation. Are there academic journals now, Marty, where university professors would be rewarded for investing their career in professional sales? Has that changed?
There are a couple that pop into my mind immediately, and it has changed. Even some of the journals that don't have the word sales or selling in their title are adding sales tracks or special interest publications, issues about selling. The number one thing that comes to my mind, the biggest one would be what's referred to as JPSSM, the Journal of Professional Sales and Sales Management. And their new editor, Adam Rapp, who's at Ohio University at the Shea Sales Center, he just wrote an editorial letter talking about the great increase in the number of paper submissions and the number of downloads of the finished issues. So we are seeing a great uptick in that. And then I mentioned earlier, Northern Illinois University, they published their Journal of Selling, which is also widely known. And they've been exploring recent topics like women in sales. How do you attract more women? Why is it women don't go into sales? And I'm going to segue here to one of the people that I know very well, also on our board, Jane Soika. She received a grant from Procter & Gamble. She's at University of Cincinnati. And she received a grant from Procter & Gamble to actually create a woman in sales course. She has an entire curriculum built around women in sales. And she finds that not only are the women interested in it, but some of the young men who recognize the possibility of getting into management and working with women in sales, they also go through the course. And there are other courses now as well. And you had Lori on your podcast, Lori Richardson, of course, and she's probably one of the number one proponents of the advantages that sales can provide to women and how women can succeed because they are good problem solvers.
Yes.
As a rule.
Right.
So those are the two journals that pop into my mind immediately. There's also one international journal that is more on like consumer behavior. And they have recently added a PhD to their staff who will be incorporating more of the sales research into their journals. So it is growing, but I couldn't agree with you more about the statements you made a few moments ago. As I said, if you can't get those within your institution on board, it's very difficult. Academia moves at a snail's pace, and it takes years to get sales incorporated. But if you have a dean or someone in your corner who's been in business as well as academia, they tend to be much more open to the prospects of incorporating sales into curriculum.
Well, it's such a positive spiral if we can get that kind of thing happening, because if we do start to offer the right courses at the right universities, then top talent will want to go to the right universities to have those courses. Then we're going to get even higher levels of talent in professional sales. And then the whole profession elevates because we've got smarter, more capable people solving bigger and better problems for clients and prospects, which is all selling really is. And so now it becomes this esteemed profession where 2 decades from now, grandmothers are going to want their grandkids to go into professional sales instead of law or medicine.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. the data again that we're working on now, the job placement rates for all of the universities combined is over 93% at graduation.
Wow.
And professors report, a lot of what I know is anecdotal from what the professors are telling us. Professors report that many of their students are juggling 3 to 4, sometimes as many as 6 job offers before they get into their senior year, or at least during the first semester of their senior year. And companies are sponsoring sales programs with some pretty good money in order to get their foot in the door to talk to these students and to potentially either give them a sales internship or a job offer.
Well, again, so smart. And those who do what I do, they know that you and I are having this conversation in 2023, February of 2023. The reality of it is, up until about 6 months ago, that we'd been in a period, the longest period I'd seen in my career, kind of 3-4 years, where the demand for quality salespeople, top tier salespeople, was dramatically outstripping supply.
Yes.
So as the advent of the SaaS business model that said growth at all costs will allow you to exit as a unicorn, all they cared about was bringing hordes of salespeople into the organization. And back then, it's different now, but before inflation, they weren't worried about being profitable. EBITDA didn't matter as much as it matters now. So there was just this insane demand for professional salespeople, and you start to see even SDRs going back and forth between companies at ridiculous numbers.
Yes.
That'll change. Our friend Herman Simon, who's been on the show recently, has talked about the impact of long-term inflation is going to hurt. So we're seeing that with a lot of big companies dropping employees and so on and so forth. That'll change. But it of course, what we want is young people coming into our companies who have some base and foundation in sales and have shown an interest in it.
Yes.
So they didn't end up here as a default. They actually, certainly I got into sales 30 years ago as a default. Man, was it 30 years ago? Maybe not quite. Okay, whoever's editing this thing, edit that out. No. Whenever it was, but that was a default. So, for a decade, I didn't even feel good about professional sales. So it was only when I went and did that MBA where I came back to my company and they said, you can do anything you want in here now. Where do you want to go? And I said, the only thing that matters in here is sales.
Right.
It'll fix everything else in here. So I'm going to stay here and keep growing in sales. Yeah. You touched on another just really interesting point, Marty, women in sales. So yes, we've had Lori Richardson on this show. She actually introduced us to, she's got a community called Women in Sales. And maybe we've had a dozen or 15 great, female sales leaders on the show. And they're all spectacular. Just knocked the ball out of the park, spectacular. My personal belief is there's a reconciliation coming here because the stats, again, are a bit surprising in terms of how few, what a low percentage females make up of the overall professional sales percentage. It doesn't make any sense to me. Your comments.
Well, I have a thought on that, and it has to do with that perceived stigma that we have both touched on a couple of times, that sales is pushy and you have to be unethical at times. And that is in people's minds. It's also in academia's mind, in places where sales is really frowned upon as being part of a business curriculum. So when we can get people, even like an intro to sales course, when we can get young people into that one course and the professor can get them to understand that sales is more about being a consultant to your customer, to your client. It's about creating a plan and advising them on the best course, what product, what service is going to serve them in the most advantageous way. And so if you can get rid of that stigma, which is so ingrained in people's minds, and you can get into seeing what sales truly is, you find that a lot of women and just young people in general are really intrigued by that prospect. And as you've said, the job market in sales is still huge. It's kind of a win-win, for the university that has the sales program and the student who gets in and recognizes it and runs with it. We like to say many times when you're talking to a student who's a graduate of a sales program, they actually self-selected into sales. They didn't fall back on it.
Exactly.
It wasn't an, oh my gosh, I can't get a job in my industry, I'm going to go into sales. Their industry is sales.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where I think we've got momentum on our side as well, to be honest with you, Marty, is because I think a lot of young people today understand that they're going to have multiple careers throughout their life. And many of them really are defaulting to want to be in control of their own destiny. So these entrepreneurship programs become very important.
Yes.
I don't think you have to be too deep into a program on entrepreneurship where you realize the only thing that's important in entrepreneurship is actually selling. So this is where you had referenced two folks from Harvard, Frank and Dan. Frank Cespedes is a very good friend of this show. I think he's the guest who's been on the show most often, actually. And so we know Frank very well. We've asked him that question because he was really one of the original thought leaders at Harvard, right, selling, teaching the courses for 20 years, 30 years. And in the early days, he said sales was always, an elective. And, we wasn't getting a lot of uptake. And now he gets much, much greater uptake due to the fact that these are entrepreneurs. These are folks who are going to want to start their own company. And they default to understanding, in order to be effective doing that, they absolutely have to understand selling.
Yes.
Because that's going to be the most important thing. And this, like all stereotypes, almost by the definition of the word, they're all based in ignorance. But the stereotype for selling, of saying, hey, you can be pushy and you're going to cajole somebody, it is 50 years old, because all the research, the psychology, the research says people avoid any form of manipulation. You can't push someone into a decision. You can't cajole somebody into doing something. All you can really do is, as you said in sales, is trying to help them achieve a better business outcome by really understanding them, their situation, their goals and objectives. And the more you understand about that, you might be in a position to provide evidence that your solution might be able to help them achieve those goals, objectives. Or even better, you'd come to the table with a point of view as to how they might be able to run a better business, a better department, a better function.
Right.
And share some social proof as to how you've done that or helped other companies do that in the past.
Exactly. Very well said.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Marty. So that's the one thing the team won't have to edit out. Everything else, they're going to have to try and make me look better doing this. So let's talk a little bit more about the Sales Education Foundation.
Sure.
So it's a not-for-profit, and it exists again to
promote university sales education, university and college, because more colleges are also getting on board, recognizing the need and filling that need. That's the key. Yes.
And how would you think it might be helpful to anybody listening today to the Selling Well podcast? We've got CEOs out there listening, sales leaders of really big sales teams. We've got professional salespeople at various stages of their careers. So mature folks like me, people mid-career, people in sales development or business development, maybe starting out. What resources are available? I would assume even listing the courses that are available at different colleges and universities in the US. There'd be adult education or things that don't have to be fully enrolled full-time in a university or a college to take. take the course. So good listing of courses and education.
Right. That's what our SEF annual is built around, is that survey I mentioned earlier. And we compile all that into a listing. There are 3 requirements to be what we call a top sales program, and we give everyone an emblem that they can put on their website or their email signatures. You have to have a minimum of 3 sales specific courses. Marketing courses don't count. They have to be sales specific. And then you also have to have university recognition, which is a challenge for lots of folks as well. And the accreditation is also extremely important. So those universities, we collect the data. In the listing, you can find out if they have a focus option. For instance, are they into international business, medical health care sales, communication, broadcast media sales, insurance, financial services, that sort of thing. You can get that information out of the listing. You can also see, who do I contact? Here's their email address, here's their phone number. And then we give the universities, in the survey, there's an open-ended question that says, give us a description. What do you want people to know about what you're doing? And some of the folks are quite creative. And so you as the reader of the annual, you can see what they have to say about themselves. And so that information is critical. Also, the interesting stat that we publish is, what type of degrees are they offering? And that would include like a graduate focus, a graduate certificate, executive training, executive certification. And you'll find that quite a few of the universities also have that to offer. So my suggestion to someone who wants to add another element to their portfolio, so to speak, is to check and see which universities are offering that graduate focus or option or executive training through the university. I think that's really important.
But by the way, it looks fantastic, team. I'm taking a look online right now at the previous newsletter, where it's got the listings of all the North American universities. So not just the US, but North American universities. And you identify, do they have an online course? Is there a specialty area? Can I get training on CRM? Do they have internships? The number of faculty that are involved in it. So, and I see some of my old friends here from Canada are on this as well. So the North American side of things, love the description. What an effective newsletter, by the way, and what an obvious place to start to recruit.
Yes.
For the gazillion of you out there who are looking for SDRs, and the ones smart enough to actually take them right out of college and university, so that when you're formally training them, you don't have to break any bad habits.
Can I interject something here?
Please do.
I've recently seen some posts and articles about how the universities are asking the companies that hire their graduates for feedback. And, we're hearing things like your graduates are literally 3 years ahead of our new hires who have not had any sales training. Wow. So it can really cut the cost to a company, by hiring someone who has been exposed to sales. And it doesn't have to be a major or a minor. It could be a certificate, or even within the listing at the end, we have what we call our other notables. And I think there's like 22 or 23 universities within that part. Those are folks who don't meet those 3 requirements, but they are still offering their students an opportunity to get that exposure to sales. And within the listing, also, we have the international universities. I think there are 18 or so of those, a few more this year. So if you're interested in studying abroad and you want to think about sales, they also are within the listing, and you can connect with them. Another thing outside of just the listing, we try to make each annual very interesting. The 2022 edition was all about sales worldwide, and all of our authors are guests. They donate their time and their article to SEF. And then at the very end of the publication, there's a listing of sales competitions. university sales competitions, which is unique because role play competitions are a makeup of practically every university's sales offering.
Yes.
But there are 25, I believe, what SEF considers to be major sales competitions. And the definition of that is really simple. It's your competition is open to students from all the different universities. It's not just your own students. As a matter of fact,
Right.
coming up in about 2 weeks, the National Collegiate Sales Competition at Kennesaw State, Terry Lowe and his group, they founded the sales competition idea. It's come in from all these different universities to compete against each other. They have career fairs where companies can come in and talk to the students.
Fantastic.
And they have prizes that they award and recognition that's given. NCSC, as it's known, is getting ready to celebrate their 25th sales competition.
Oh.
So it's been around quite some time, but just like SEF, it's a real secret to folks that haven't gotten any of this exposure that we're hoping to give them. You know, I like to tell people, you were talking about SEF earlier, I like to say SEF has a really big footprint in a very small space.
Well, you know what? It seems like this space is growing exponentially, Marty.
It is.
And boy, when I look at, we're a huge fan of Jason Jordan, by the way.
Oh, I love Jason.
Love the book, original book, 15 years ago, but it was so spectacular. And I think you've got great people associated with this program. I think we're doing amazing things to elevate the professionalism of B2B sales. And the momentum that you've got behind you. I was actually getting a little lost there as I was taking a look at those sales competitions. Love the role plays, speed selling. There's a career fair attached to it. So if you're out there today as a sales leader thinking about the long-term health of your company, you need to get attached to some of these programs. So
yes,
you want to be starting to recruit some of these top tier students who already have an interest in selling, are growth oriented, want to learn, get those folks coming into your business. And all of you are having a tough time, even still recruiting entry-level salespeople because the competition's so fierce.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, my sense is that's going to change over the next year or so. But right now, get in and get your name associated with these programs to get the right top tiers. This is an investment in 5 years from now or 10 years from now for your firm.
Yes. Can I interject one other thing too?
Please do.
You know, today's college students, they want to know about the company and what does the company stand for? What do they do? And the best way for students to find that out and to, you know, for a lot of your listeners to get them interested in your company is to get in there and connect with them.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing I think. You'd have the ear of the students. And so it's two-way. You get the organizations who are interested, but if I was an organization and even in the funnel, we recruit salespeople for our company. So I'd want to know what's important to them now. How do we become the most attractive employer for them to get the top tier of talent? Lots of things changing, but just love where this is going, Marty. I'm so glad. I'll say it again. It was Grant Albrecht who kind of connected us. I'm so glad he did. And after today, so first of all, Marty, thank you so much for joining today. What a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about not only sales education, but the Sales Education Foundation as well.
Oh, great. And we've mentioned it a number of times, but what's the best place for someone to go to learn more about the Sales Education Foundation?
Well, our website is simply salesfoundation.org. And it is a compilation of about soon to be 17 years worth of information, links to articles, links to past episodes of our small little podcast, past issues of the annual as well as current issues. And we try to provide a variety of information because we have a variety of audiences. We have professionals who want to know, recruiters who are saying, where can I get more information on how to do my job better? And where are these students I keep hearing wonderful things about? So we've got companies, recruiters, professionals, parents. I have a lovely story I like to tell. It's a really short. During the Christmas break, I received a phone call from a parent in Indiana. Indiana is one of the states that has quite a few universities with sales programs. And their son had come home from college break and said, I want to change my minor and I want to go into sales. And the father almost had a heart attack. Just that stigma, like we've talked about. Right. But then he got online and he found Sales Education Foundation, and he wanted to know what was going on. And so we talked for a little while. He got in touch with, I believe it might have been Indiana State, or it could have been Indiana University, Kelley School of Business. And he all of a sudden realized that his son had a great idea and a real opportunity to get a good education and then get a great job. So he was all in. So we've got the parents, we've got students who are interested too, and then just individuals who hear about sales education and they want to know more. So we really have a huge varied audience, and we really try hard to make our website of interest to all of those different groups. It's challenging.
Everything I looked at in the newsletter is of high interest to me.
Great.
And so I can't imagine it's not to anybody else out there.
Can I give you a little hint on what's coming up for 2023?
Yes, please do.
Our theme is all around sales renaissance.
Wow. Tell us about that.
And we have some great guest authors, some really well-known names in academia as well as business, writing about how there is a renaissance in sales management. There's a renaissance in sales research. There's just a total rethinking and reimagining of sales curriculum. We have one guy in particular. If you've never met Howard Dover, I would recommend getting in touch with Howard. He's at the University of Texas at Dallas, and everyone that writes for us is very special in my heart because, as I mentioned, they're all guests. They donate their time and they donate their articles to help make the SEF Annual better each year. But Howard is really into sales technology. And so he's provided us an interesting piece on that. There's another organization called the University Sales Center Alliance, which is made up of universities that have a sales center. Not everyone is going to have a sales center. Not everyone ever will, because the requirements are quite stringent. And that, again, rolls back into the idea of how do we get more universities interested in teaching sales? Because academia insists that they follow their roadmap.
Right.
And many times they just simply can't. But one more thing I'd like to say when it comes to sales research, and you mentioned Jason Jordan, he's our director of research. He heads up the Research Grant Selection Committee each year, and he writes a little synopsis about each grant recipient's final paper. So thanks go out to Jason and every one of our board members, many of whom you've met, you've had on your show, and some you never will, but they're all very special. They help us do what we do.
All great, Marty. And just for everybody listening, the Sales Management Code was Jason's first book, which was a huge hit. So
Absolutely.
Sales Management Code, still a good read, very good read about facts, data, KPIs, and sales. What great resources you've just shared, Marty. And our team will make sure they're in the show notes for today.
Terrific.
And once again, thank you so much for making time for us today. It's such a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, it's a great pleasure meeting you, Mark. Thanks again to Grant for introducing us. And thank you for having me on the show.
My pleasure indeed. And folks, thank you very much for joining today. As always, we run this podcast to help improve the performance and professionalism of B2B sales. And in doing so, we think we're improving the lives of professional salespeople. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast. Tell your friends. That really matters to us. If there's something we can do to make this time more valuable to you and improve the Selling Well podcast, we love to hear from you. We love constructive criticism. You can send your thoughts to me, Mark Cox at inthefunnel.com, Mark Cox at inthefunnel.com. That's actually my personal email that I check. And we respond to everybody who's sent in advice. And by the way, we're doing what we do today because of some great advice we've received from you all. So thanks to everybody for today. We'll look forward to speaking to you on the next Selling Well podcast.